Hobby Heroes, welcome to the coach on his very first hobby hangout. I hope you're all doing well. Had to do a little new setup here. Hope it looks all right. I hope the sound is coming up okay. A little bit of a different setup than normal, so a little bit nervous, but more importantly, a little bit excited to share the next hour or I guess 90 minutes, depending on how long it takes for my wife to knock on the door and say, hey, it's time for lunch. So what am I going to be working on today? I'm going to be working on a new Celestial Hurricanum that I'll be taking to CanCon, which is literally less than a month away. So Christmas, it was the 30-day mark before CanCon, which is Australia's largest Age of Sigmar event, and also the world. It's going to be 240 players that'll be playing at CanCon. So it's basically in the center of Australia in the capital, funnily enough. A lot of people don't know that Canberra is actually Australia's capital. So we all kind of come together and we're going to play some pretty awesome 6 games of Sigmar. And I'm basically, I've got a Hurricanum that I built a couple of years ago. And I think my skills have kind of increased and I want to take a second stab at it. But also put a little bit of a new flair on it. So you'll notice that I'll put this in a frame here. The Hurricanum will be pulled by 2 demigryphs. So I'll be putting some demigryphs on here and doing a whole bunch of new stuff. So g'day, Warsoren. Nice to see you here on the chat. I'll have to manually bring this up. I am having a wonderful day. It's only 10:30 this morning in Australia, so I think that translates, depending on where you are, around 6 to 8 p.m. If you're in America. So I have not long woken up. Still owe the dog a walk. Still owe the wife a whole bunch of cleaning and stuff to do. But I wanted to make sure that I got in a little bit of hobby time with our US friends before I do those manual chores. So I started painting up. I'll get used to this eventually. So we got a battle mage that I'm painting up for CanCon that'll go on top of the Hurricanum that is going on the side. So just working on just different sub-assemblies. I think that's one thing that I'd learnt. So the original Hurricanum that I did was I'd only done one piece, so I basically put it all together in one go and attempted to paint it. And it's quite hard. This is actually quite a detailed piece. You can see here you've got books and you've got all this iconography. That's really hard to get to if you put it all together in one piece. So today we've got it sub-assembled, and I'll be working on a whole bunch of stuff. It's nice to see we've got Cinderful Gaming here. Hey, Luke. We've got Paul. How Paul? And Warsoren. Yes, absolutely. It's 5:30 p.m. You should be working, but I know it's this holiday, so you are not having to work today, hopefully. So I probably should stop talking and actually start painting, although today's focus really is just a hobby hangout. You guys have been asking for something like this for a while now, so I've got the new setup. We're going to do some painting together. As we kind of go through this series, I guess I'll have some topics to talk about. In the meantime, happy to share my thoughts, my opinions, anything you want to know about my CanCon army, anything you want to talk about from the Australian scene, any particular thoughts about the KO or the new Zench that's coming and maybe what we could potentially expect. We've obviously had the new Slaves of Darkness book drop. Lots of stuff has happened, so certainly this as much it can be an ask me anything type of conversation, as well as if you just want to paint along and I just talk about random stuff, that's also okay. All right, so I should probably actually get a paintbrush. So I'll be using Games Workshop paints. I'm pretty much a traditionalist when it comes to painting GW models with GW paints, although I have fallen in love recently with the Vallejo range and also been playing around with an airbrush lately. So to the side here, I've got I had just primed 2 of my CanCon pieces. So in Australia, when you come to a tournament, almost every tournament, I certainly noticed this is a little bit different than America, but in Australia, it's almost a requirement that you contribute 3 pieces of terrain to the table. So that kind of eases the burden off the tournament organizer having to supply, 8 to 10 pieces of terrain per table, which is a lot, especially if you think about Clint, Clint's got 240 players. So that's 120 tables potentially. Pretty crazy when you think about how many pieces of terrain that would be if you put 8 to 10 pieces of terrain on that table. That is a metric ton of terrain. So, yeah, pretty crazy for Clint. Luckily, we all bring 3 pieces. We bring 3 pieces of terrain that we will contribute. So that makes life a bit easier. I just realized I forgot my wet palette. So I was going to attempt to clean my wet palette. But I made the conscious decision to either paint, to either clean my wet palette or to put on some music. And I think I went with the music in those dying minutes of, oh shite, I have not got music up. So if you guys want to ask any questions, you want to let me know what you're working on, what's happening in your world. If there's things that you want to know either about maybe what's happening on the channel in the next, I guess, we're about to finish the year. 2019 was a pretty awesome year in my opinion. We've got 2020 coming up, so I'd be curious to hear what you're working on for 2020. Equally, I'm just going to work out what I'm going to do for 2020. I've been building my Cities of Sigmar army, I guess 2.0. Previously had done the Empire / Cities of Sigmar / the Free People / Mixed Order during the early ages of Age of Sigmar, which was pretty awesome. Oh, that's not what I was going to do. I was going to do that gold. I am drunk. What am I doing? Losing the plot. Where's my Hurricane piece? Bear with me for 1 second. G'day, Circus. How are we today? What are you guys working on? I know Warsoren is working on a Demon Prince, which is looking pretty neat. Absolutely loving all the new chaos that's hitting the tables at the moment, and people excited about Everchosen and bringing up those Varangard, and a whole heap of Archeons are now starting to be built, and a whole bunch of cool stuff. So what are you guys working on? Put it in the chat while I delay myself for 20 seconds while I go find the other piece of my Hurricane that's not on my painting desk. Silly me. What are you working on? Found part of it. We'll just work with this. What have we got here? So we've got someone from the UK. So we've got Stuart. Hey, Stuart. Sorry that this isn't the most appropriate time for my poor friends in the UK. It's really hard. It's really hard to get a time zone friendly for the UK, the US, and Australia, unless I want to do a hobby hangout at like 4 a.m. But we'll try to get one up for you. We'll try to rotate this. We'll see if we get something for the UK as much as our American friends. But I think American friends have been harassing they're harassing me for this. So, but Circus is working on a Nighthaunt, Bladegeist, and Ogre batch painting. Okay, that's pretty cool. The Ogre is going to be in the Nighthaunt, or am I assuming that we're going to have more tribes as well as basically working on 2 armies because you're awesome. Although spooky ogres would be pretty cool to see as well. Well, Soren, what do you think of the new army promotion? Do you think Australia will get the Mortal Realms magazine? Good question. So the interesting thing for us, and again, I'm speaking on behalf of the whole country here, being Australia. So the new year, new army is a wonderful opportunity to build a new army, especially for people who are looking for an excuse to cash in those Games Workshop vouchers, or have been playing an army for a long time. You've played it for a season. In Australia, I don't know how popular that is, and I say that because I just mentioned CanCon. So CanCon is 240 players. It comes up on Australia's, I guess, Independence Day, although it's not quite Independence Day. We have Australia Day, which is a little bit controversial depending on where you sit, depending on, some people see that as an invasion day, some people see it as a celebration, depending on your views on the world. But regardless, that's when we have CanCon. So everybody is really focused right now on, if they're going to run an army, they're going to do it at CanCon, and they are going to have that army ready before January has finished. So most people in Australia see CanCon as the start of their new tournament season. They spend the last couple of months building up to the nation's greatest and biggest event, and then we'll play that year traditionally throughout the tournament season. Some people might only run it for 6 months or 3 months, but most people see CanCon as that trigger for a new army. However, overall, I think it's wonderful. We've obviously had the Slaves to Darkness book drop. We knew KO and Zench is coming up pretty soon. Big rumors that Seraphon's coming. So I think, just in the last couple of months alone, even Cities of Sigma, more tribes, there has been a lot of reasons. If you're looking for one to start a new army and you haven't refreshed your range for 6 to 12 months, this is a wonderful time to get started. I'm thinking about what my next army will be. I've been batch painting a whole bunch of Zench, funnily enough. I've got demons that backdate to the 90s, so I've always had a love of Zench. I've got about, what have I got? About 50 pink horrors, 60 or 70 blue horrors, and about 80 brimstone horrors, plus 13 screamers. Oh, no, sorry, 6 screamers, 13 flamers, and then a whole bunch of characters. So I've been contrasting them lately. I decided to strip them and build them up a little bit, and then obviously the book announcement kind of has only been a motivator. So that's potentially my next army, although Cities is quite new. And then the other part is, do you think we'll get the Mortal Realms magazine? Good question. I'm not quite sure if we're going to get the Mortal Realms magazine. We traditionally don't get a lot of that stuff. I would love and hope we do get it, but who knows? I should now pay attention to the chat. So Zach, how are we? Excited to finally have the Slaves to Darkness battle tome. I'm going to be working on your army. I think that is really neat. We've got a couple of local guys who have been running the Slaves to Darkness book before the book, before the new book, and they've always been wonderful, but clearly not enough. I'm really excited about it. All that I hope is that people explore the book more than just taking what appears to be the strongest build, which is Nurgle right now. But I think do what you want to do. I think it's going to be excellent. I can't wait to see more Archaeons on the table. I have both killed Archaeon and also been punished by Archaeon. So I look forward to seeing this new protagonist hitting the table. Des is working on Archaeon, so building a bit every single, absolutely. It is potentially, in my opinion, the most intimidating model in Age of Sigmar. I mean, Nagash is pretty big, but I think a couple of sub-assemblies and you got Nagash down pat. Archaeon is such a huge model and such an intricate model with so many colors. I think it'll be an awesome one to put your time in and just absolutely build something you love, and doing it when the kids go to bed is the right time, just little by little. Who knows? McDocile Creatures is working on magnetizing the Stonehorn Rider. Is that for transport, or is that because you want to swap out the leader for to make it just battle line, or variety? Working on the Rockbringers, awesome. Cheers, Stuart. Circus, 5 armies over 2k points. I need to chill. Wow. How long have you had those armies for? But it's exciting that you can jump between armies and you can never get bored. Hey Tyler, good morning from Australia. Good afternoon in the Americas and Canadians. I'm well. Everyone is good. Wargaming Dad, g'day. Asked about the magazine because 40k Conquest magazine is supposed to be available there. Yeah, 40k Conquest magazine was available. I never got my hands on one. I always tried to buy the Conquest magazine. I thought it'd be interesting to at least get those models and paint some 40k. I'm not really a big 40k lore guy. I don't really enjoy it. I think I'm very, very fantasy orientated. But I was very curious to pick up the magazine and get some of those models, but it was out of stock. It was always out of stock, so I'm not sure if there was just a very limited range, or if people were selling them on eBay, or what was going on there. But I would like to see the Mortal Realms hopefully there. I am too absolutely looking forward to the Everchosen event as well. Painting, yes, I got halfway through painting my Everchosen model. I had done Selesky, and I probably got 2/3, 3/3 of the way through it. However, around that same time, I run an event called Sydney GT, which is about 100 to 110 players. So I found that I had to trade my personal hobby time to paint terrain. So unfortunately my Selesky is halfway, 3/4 of the way painted, that I would have loved to have put into the Everchosen painting competition. That would have been neat. Although certainly wasn't going to win it, but it would have been cool to, and same kind of thing with Armies on Parade as well. For anyone who has seen me on Twitter lately, you might have seen some of my pictures of my CanCon display board. And that's partially as well because, Armies on Parade, again, happens around the same time as Sydney GT, so I don't get a lot of personal hobby time between kind of May till October, which is when the event finishes. So I miss out on Armies on Parade. So I'm really going hard on Sydney GT, my CanCon display board, so that, one, I've got something for Armies on Parade, but two, to make up for that time. So really excited. Having the option of a Frostlord or a Huskard, yeah, that's what I thought. That's really cool. I think that book is really cool. I recently spoken to Mick Wendell and Doom and Darkness to talk about the new More Tribes book, and I think it's a nice build. I mean, it's not crazy power levels that some people may have expected, but at the same time, your army's not going to get you're not going to get a whole bunch of erratas and FAQs down the track. So I think some people were very disappointed about it, but I think ultimately the more books that have an average win rate of 45 to 55%, you're averaging about 3 games at a tournament, and then skill level brings you to the 4s and the 5 victories, is only a good thing. We've gone through Hagnar, Doors of Cain, we've gone through Slanesh and double piling in Feck. The less of that, the better. I certainly don't want to see an arms race when it comes to just, quote unquote, chasing the meta. I think it should come down to player skill. Cinderful Gaming is working on his city's army. Shame you can't be at CanCon, although I know you have a child on the way and you're getting married. So that absolutely makes complete sense. Oh no, sorry, Travis has got the kid on the way, but you are certainly getting married. So I think you've got a fair excuse not to be there. But looking forward to seeing how your army is coming about with your cities. Wargaming Dad has done 2K of Daughters of Cain, back to Khorne with Scarbrand. Really enjoy Scarbrand. I played Scarbrand about 5 months ago at an event called Sydney Slaughter, and Scarbrand went into my grots and killed 56 grots in a single round of combat by himself. So he'd done the double pile-in, 56 grots in one combat by one model. Was crazy. I absolutely laughed my ass off. Luckily, I had a leader around so I could inspire presence, because I had 5 fanatics in there. So I had to keep that unit alive, bring out those fanatics, and then they returned serve and destroyed Scarbrand. So that was a very fun Khorne-orientated battle, which I really enjoyed. But man, he absolutely is nasty. But then I played him again last month at a teams event, a 4-on-4 teams event. Played a lovely girl by the name of Monica, who had Scarbrand, and unfortunately I hit him with the Quicksilver swords, and out of the 15 dice that I get to roll because I'm Cities of Sigmar, I did 8 mortal wounds with the swords. So bit of a mixed dice with old Scarbrand, but man, he's cool. Just a shame he doesn't fly. Cinderful Gaming's got way too many armies on the go. That's the challenge, right? You know, there's so many cool models coming out. It's hard to pick. It's hard to really pick and stick with an army. So I look back now, and so I had played essentially the Empire, which is the Free People, the Cities of Sigmar, back in Warhammer Fantasy. And I played them for 15 years straight. I rarely took a break with them. It's crazy to think that I played with one army for 15 years, for such a long time. And now I've got a Flesh Eater Courts army. I've got a Zench army. I've got a Sylvaneth army that hasn't hit the table yet. Funnily enough, I built up a 2,000 point Sylvaneth army that I was really excited to do. I was really excited to do my Sylvaneth. I had this really cool idea around summer. Lots of vibrant yellows, greens, and oranges. I had some really cool themes. I was going to convert up Orion using the War Scroll of Durthu. So Orion was an old character from Warhammer Fantasy that was very much around the hunt with Kurnoth. And then literally the day that the Battletome Sylvaneth book came out was the day that Cities of Sigmar was announced, like 6 hours later at an event. So as you can imagine, that army changed pretty quickly. With the minute that the Cities of Sigmar book dropped, my priorities came back pretty quickly, and I stopped with the Sylvaneth, which I'm not sorry about. Well, sorry, what are your thoughts on the STD changes? Do you think the Marauder changes will make mercenaries a more viable choice in some armies? Yeah, interesting. So I'm not sure what it's like in everyone's meta. I know. So I've seen some players packs where people have actually banned the mercenary rules outright. So I'm not quite sure yet why. Reminds me very much when Firestorm very first came out. People had blanket banned Firestorm. So this what is now the Cities of Sigmar, when they introduced the first set of rules for Hammerhall. It was very, very toned down from what you see today. But that got kind of blanket banned, and I've seen a whole bunch of books completely banned. So packs completely banning the mercenary company. But do the Marauder changes make people? Should your tournament, have the mercenaries? It's an interesting trade-off. So if I think about what the Marauders bring to the table, so we're obviously getting some pretty good attacks. We're getting some bodies. In return, and they're quite cheap as well, especially for some of those elite armies that do not have access to cheap bodies. And obviously, there's other benefits there, but I'm making a very generalized statement. The trade-off is at one command point. So you lose a command point in doing so, and obviously, yeah. So first things first, I think the Marauder models are going to stop people from taking the mercenary company. So the average Joe, you know, the average guy is either going to look for third-party models if they go down this route, or they're going to look at the Marauder models and they're not going to buy them. As much as I love the goofy old sculpts, they're very different to the sculpts of today. So I think that's a challenge. Wargaming Dad on Twitch. It's quiet on here. You can't hear me at all? Let me know in the comments. I'm restreaming here, so I'm actually on YouTube. If it's not working on Twitch, this is more of a trial for Twitch. If it doesn't work well, I won't come back to Twitch. I might just maybe restream to Facebook or just keep it exclusive to YouTube. Do let me know in the chat. Look, I don't know. I really don't know. I think there's too many now accesses to cheap bodies. Yeah, I don't know. I think, yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Let's see. Like, look, literally in the next couple of days, I'm going to pull out the stats for AOS reminders, and we'll see if anyone is going down the Marauder route, especially outside of Chaos. I'm certainly not incentivized to do it, but I'm not in an army that requires the bodies or requires what they offer. Yeah. But I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you guys think? Do you think... what do you guys think? So let me know. I'm more inclined to kind of take the Skellies and the Necromancers. That's also partially because I own Skeletons and a Necromancer, and I like the idea of, you know, the cities of Sigmar allying with death. Very much, you know, you read the stories of the legions of Migash, and you hear there are certainly stories of the humans living hand in hand with the spirits of the dead, their ancestors in Shaiish. So to me, I like that more, but yeah, I'm not quite sure. You need to make more terrain. That's why I bought 2 3D printers. Good Lord. I so much terrain. Games Workshop was very kind to send me some Forge World trophies and some terrain as well for Sydney GT. And I built probably 200 sets of Azurite Ruins, and I've probably still got another 400 sets to go. And my God, am I sick of Azurite Ruins as a terrain piece. But yeah, more terrain. I need to build more terrain. Hey, Sean, good to see you. Looks like it's working. Be interested as well to see which channel. So I use a service here to stream my content. So about 6 months ago, YouTube made some changes and they removed the Google Hangouts integration into YouTube. So if anyone who's been following me for over 6 months has noticed the change, that's because I've had to go in and pay for software. And so the software I use is called StreamYard, which is essentially a software version of OBS, which is what most people. So if you watch Warhammer Weekly, or if you watch Rob Symes' Almost Wargamer, Cinderfall, if he's still here, I believe he uses OBS, but it's essentially an open broadcasting service where, you know, you put your screens in and, you know, happy days. I don't use that, partially because my upload speeds aren't, Australia's internet speeds generally isn't that great. And when I have 4 to 5 guests, that can really not be a good time for YouTube. But anyway, where was I going with this random tangent? Something about Twitch or something about, can't remember where I was going with this tangent. Someone can remind me. Something about this service, but yeah. So I'm trying to work out what I'm going to buy. So I was lucky enough to get a couple of Games Workshop vouchers in the Christmas kitty, and my birthday is 2 weeks from now. That's Saturday. It's in Australia. It's Saturday, so it's 2 weeks from now. So I'm wondering, do I run the gauntlet, wait a couple of weeks to see if people buy me Games Workshop vouchers for my birthday, or do I spend what I've got? I do want a lot of change. I think that would wrap up my Zench army quite well. Or I can just buy more city stuff, right? I think once I finish with Hello Heart, which is I'm very magically orientated. I ran Gloomspite Gits, which was 6 to 7 endless spells. I've always had a really enjoyed magic, so I think I'll go back to maybe War Machine. So I may try to build some nice grey water fastness type, and I might be the only sleep person in the world, but I want to build volley guns as opposed to the rocket batteries. I think there's some nice little secret tech in the volley guns under grey water fastness. Plus they look really cool. In my opinion. They're a bit more random than normal, but yeah. Who knows, maybe even a steam tanker's battle line. I think that's pretty neat. Although if I go down that route, or Tempest Eye, I had an idea of getting the Blood Bowl halflings and converting them up to be my KO allies. I just need to work out how to. I'm not a big fan of the steampunk aesthetics. It's not really my style. So if I'm going to do KO in my cities, I want to be able to have my own touch. So I'm trying to think of how do I recreate the engine riggers with potentially halflings. But how do I recreate the balloons? I think that's where I'm currently stuck. I was thinking about using there's an old fantasy Dogs of War unit called the Birdmen. So I was thinking of using Birdmen, but they're all very static, very monoposed as the old sculpts used to be. So, but if anyone has a third-party miniature company they would recommend, or it's really good fantasy bits, I'm absolutely all ears. Looking for something less steampunk when it comes to doing some KO. So I may go Tempest Eye, or I may do some grey water fastness after this. I'm not sure. Not really sure. But New Year, New Army. What are you guys working on? What is going to be? Are you going to be following New Year, New Army? And if so, what is drawing your attention? I know a lot of people, certainly a few people in my circles, the rumors are starting to get stronger about the next set of elves. Likely the light elves. Teclis and Tyrion's next set of elves, and the rumors are getting stronger. So I think a few people that I know are holding out. They're a little bit skeptical, like, I don't want to start a new army. As tempted as I am about Slaves to Darkness, I know elves are on the way. So But it's been a while since we've seen new dwarves as well, so who knows? Well, Soren, I would wait to spend your money until the announcements are made. Potentially new units of Zench. Yeah, that's a really interesting point, especially when you think about the new book and the new box set. Being that the demons really appeal to me, I'm very unlikely to jump onto the Arcanite, the Skyfire builds. Never really. I like the demon side. I think it's a lot of fun. I don't want more humans in my army. I've got enough humans. I want something that's different. But is there any changes you'd like to see in the Zench book? There is lots. Zench was the first feel bad army. So, people hated the Destiny dice mechanics, and I think there were certain things within Destiny dice that needed to change. I think, certainly there was one where, right at the start, there were changes made around you could, choose priority roles. And they certainly squashed that pretty quickly. But Zench, what would I like to see in Zench? I mean, the obvious is going to be endless spells. Some of the spell casting powers of Zench, he is the ultimate spellcaster, and it's easy for me. I was having a joke the other day with one of my gaming buddies. I cast an arcane bolt once with Hallow Heart using an 18. I'd rolled a double 6 and I had +6 to my cast. There are so many better casters right now in the game that Zench's magical supremacy that they had right at the start, where you could cast, spells and dispel at a lot further ranges. They don't have that magical supremacy. Arcane the Black is probably one of the strongest spellcasters for their points value. Obviously, Nagash is such a strong caster. I would certainly like to see that, see more of that. What else would I like to see in Zench? Zench's battalions were very lackluster, and that's why Change Host got a bad name, because from the demon side, it was really the only good version of that. So certainly seeing some more interesting battalions that encourages variety, as opposed to look, I think the one goal for all books is that there shouldn't be an easy option. So you look at the Ossiarch Bone Reapers. The go-to is the Petrifix. It's just the easy answer, and majority of the book remains unexplored. You look at Daughters of Cain. Hagnar was the temple. There, even in KO, Barak Zilfin was the Skyport. There was just one singular build. So my hope for Zench and for all new books is that there is no automatic one choice. It should be like Cities, where there are a couple of viable builds. Yes, you could probably argue Living City, Hallow Heart, and Tempest Eye are the strong builds, but at least there's 3 options compared to 1. What else would I like to see in Zench? Yeah, interesting. It's been such a long time since you've seen quality Zench. I think it's just been too many rewards to go one build. Age of Sigmar, really early days, is all about demons. Now it's always been about Zangors and spamming and flooding the board with Enlightened, or whether it's Skyfires on discs, or they're flipping to Enlightened, and then you got Zangors on foots. It's just always been one build. I don't think you've seen Screamers on the board, or Flamers on the board, or Chariots on the board for such a long time. I would like to see more diversity and encouraging of diversity is like I was joking with Ben Spinetti, who is a very talented Carrigan Overlords player, and we were joking about how we never see Brock on the table. Brock is a wonderful model, but you just don't see him. And yeah, I think more diversity is what I would like to see, which is ironic because in the last couple of weeks, I've played 2 Bone Reaper Petrifix armies. They've been a little bit different, but, you know, +1 to armor save, +1 rend to battle line, to everything, actually. It starts to reward one build. So, yeah. Southeast Wargaming, I'm going to be doing Slates of Darkness, but also want to flesh out the existing armies as I've been thinking about going to some tournaments for the first time and learning higher forms of play. Take what you love, man. Absolutely take what you love. I started when I started in Age of Sigmar. My goal was to attend the Australian Masters. So, if you're in America, you may not know what the Masters is. The Masters is it's kind of like we don't have the ETC here in Australia for Age of Sigmar. Our tournaments are ranked. England has the same structure as well, but basically your tournament attendance gets submitted to a committee. So in Australia, it's run by the Heralds of War, Clint Mallet. And basically, we have like a league ladder that accumulates all the tournaments and players who attended throughout the year. And then the top or the best of the best get invited to a like an invitational only event called the Masters, where the top 16 players get to play each other for the title of Master. There's no point, there's no dollars, there's no sponsorship. I don't get to become a professional gamer afterwards, but it's a wonderful tournament and, you know, a celebration of the competitive season. So my very first year of competitive tournaments, I attended the Masters and came 5th. So that was pretty cool, especially because I was running the free people. I took the free people to Masters, which was pretty crazy if you think about it. And I came 5th, so I had some really, really, really good games. After that one particular season, I realized that I didn't want to just go to tournaments to win. Winning is definitely important, but not at the expense of my hobby, and not at the expense of not having a good time with my opponents. So basically where I'm going with this is take the army that you absolutely love. Don't worry about don't worry too much about, you know, running an army that's going to get you 5-0, unless you have some grand plans of, you know, you want to, I don't know, create content videos, and the way you're going to do that is being the authority of in the gaming table. But go to a tournament, play with the army that you love. Often the keys to winning tournaments is practice, knowing your army's ins and outs, knowing what your opponent can do in and out, and knowing your limitations. It's often the decision making, not the list. I think there's too much emphasis on list building, not enough emphasis on practice and getting to know your opponent's armies. So that improves your decision making and ultimately puts you in a better position. So that's my advice when you head to your first tournament. But what is your first tournament, by the way? Curious to hear what's coming up. Have you watched Almost Pro? He does an almost monthly meta for 40K. Would you love? I would love an AOS video of the same format. Patsy, I have actually. Almost Pro does really cool videos. Shout out to the 40K. I'm about to spruik my own content, so I'm not sure if you're new to the channel, Patsy, or not. But just under a month ago, I had released a video called Emerging Meta. So I had used the data that came from the list building site AOS Reminders to essentially highlight the emerging meta in Age of Sigmar. So what were the units that people were building around? What were those artifacts, allies, you name it. I'd gone through a bunch of stuff. So if you haven't seen that particular video, highly recommend you do so. Over 6,000 people have already watched it. I was blown away. I didn't know if people would be interested in that type of video. And we're probably, the month's almost ending. So basically I look at the month retrospectively. So literally in a few days time, I will record the emerging meta from, the list generated through the month of December. So I imagine there could be some interesting things that'll come out of that. Look forward to seeing how our Slaves to the Darkness armies are building, and potentially what the impacts of those armies have been to other people's lists. Are they, have they been tabled previously and now need to think about how they handle a turn one charging War Crusher, or how they handle, last night I played against Liam's Bone Reapers that had 2 catapults, which do crazy damage for things that are, if you don't save, it's 5 damage, which is crazy. So some things to think about. Wargaming Dad won a 1K event with Greywater to show there are more options than Daughters of Cain. Absolutely. Greywater's wonderful. Was it Steam Tank? Was it, how did you build your army? I know a lot of people taking gyrocopters at the moment. They're a bit of fun. And what do you think is the best Gloomspite list now? Ooh, Gloomspite became, I wouldn't say quite strong, but it's quite a complex army. There was certainly people who built around endless spells. There were people that built around, if I was going to build a Gloomspite Gist list today, there's a couple of things I need to think about. I need to think about, how do I handle an Ossiarch Bone Reapers list? So I need to be able to handle, especially with Petrifex. So I'm building around mortal wounds, and a lot of them, or I'm building around endless spells. Oh, sorry, mortal wounds or rend. Now, Gloomspite don't have a lot of rend unless you go down the squig or the troll route, or you go down the mortal wound route, which will probably come through endless spells, or potentially using the likes of the Loon Boss to buff up your regular grots. If I was going to build a grot list today, I'm still heavily rewarded. Oh, sorry. So you got Bone Reapers. I need to be able to handle a turn 1 charge, potentially without any of my buffs, from the likes of an Iron Jaws or a More Tribes, like, potentially 2 Stonehorns. One might have a Thermal Rider cloak, so it's got +4 on its move. One may even have Ignex Scales, so it's ignoring mortal wounds, or it has Ethereal Amulet. So depending on someone's build. So I need to be able to handle Bone Reapers. I need to be able to handle Slanesh. I need to be able to handle Iron Jaws and More Tribes. We don't know how Archaon's going to build. I think, in my opinion, Patsy, just to speed up basically your question, I still think a heavy grot list is the way forward. If I want to have a bit of a utility army, I'd probably still field about 80 to 100 grots, and then thinking about what sits behind it, whether it's going to be a bunch of little wizards that cast things, whether it's going to be some nice meaty trolls, or some squigs that can do some damage. But I certainly need the bodies to soak it up, but then also I need a way to dish it out. G'day, Poet. Absolutely hobbying live. You guys are asking some really good questions, so I hope you guys didn't really want to watch me paint. I'm trying to paint and answer questions. This is challenging. Much credit to Doug 2+ Tough, who does this. Mad skills to him. First tournament with Midwest Meltdown, and with the first games of Age of Sigmar. I am very, 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 very likely attending Midwest Meltdown, which is happening in Illinois as well. So hopefully I'll see you there, Warsaw, and make sure you're there. I have a wedding in Seattle the week prior, so I'm doing my absolute best to attend Midwest Meltdown. Looking forward to seeing that. Damn those kids. That's why I've got a dog. The dog can be patiently sitting next to me. Maybe I'll go down and get a dog cam one day. Stim Tank Commander, good Lord, love that Stim Tank, man. 2 handgunners, 1 volley gun, 1 rocket. Nice little way to build out a 1,000 point list. I think Castigators in Stormcaster terms are really good for 80 points. Are you crazy? No, I don't think you are crazy. I think the challenge with Stormcast is you have a lot of cool models and they cost a lot of points. So if you've got 80 points, where is it best invested? Or do you even have 80 points left? I know people are talking about putting 2 Star Drakes on the table right now, especially if you're going to put them in a Living City list or a Tempest Eye list. There's a lot of cool ways to build around Stormcast, but it's also very expensive. So is Castigators, are you crazy? No, but how are you supporting those 80 points? I just think there's too many ways that you can enhance your existing army for 80 points that there's an interesting trade-off. Mortal Wounds all the way, Endless Spell List Smash, OBR. They do have wonderful ways of regenerating though. So if you are going to go down, so I played OBR twice now, and with mixed success. Certainly been focusing on different things. But there are certain characters like the Harvester that if you see a Harvester, you've got to take it out. At the same time, you've got things like, I just mentioned the catapults that have a 36-inch range. So, and they do some serious damage. And they have a once per game shot where they essentially roll 2 dice, blah, 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 blah. It can auto-delete a model. So I killed one of Liam's catapults last night. He had 1 left on, I think, 2 or 3 wounds. And he basically auto-deleted my fully healed up Hurricanum. So he rolled 2 dice, and at that stage, he needed to roll an 8 on 2 dice. He did, and my Hurricanum had no save, no benefit. It was just auto-delete. So not only is it wonderful for killing hordes, it's got a crazy threat range, and it has its once per game delete. So, and they're only like 200-ish points. So keep that in mind. Building up 45 Chaos Warriors right now. Hell yeah. Those new Chaos Warriors are so bloody good. They're so good. I am half tempted to do Slaves to Darkness. I still have some very old 5th edition, 6th edition Knights and Chaos Warriors. And I've even got the old Sorcerer on the 2-headed dragon. And I'm like, ooh, do I bring that up back as like a Sorcerer Lord on a Manticore or something? But the new Slaves models definitely are very tempting. Building up the exact list. Yes, sweet. Yeah, I think there's a lot of fun in the Grey Water Fastness if you go down this route. But know that there's going to be some bad matchups. There's going to be very bad matchups. But if you're having fun with your models, who cares? Who cares? Just looking at my paints. What am I going to do? What am I going to work on? So, what am I working on so far? Actually, I should probably finish this piece off. So I think I've settled on my CanCon list. So another thing in Australia that we have to do, which I noticed wasn't a thing when I played at Adepticon this year, was that we have to submit our lists 2 weeks in advance. So I know at Adepticon we didn't even submit our list until the day. So I sat down and you get in line and you go to the TO table and you submit the list, your army, and they basically go over it on the spot. Now in Australia that doesn't happen. What we do is we submit our tournament list to our tournament organizer 2 weeks in advance. and that allows the tournament, organizer 2 weeks to go through all of the lists to make sure that they're legal, and then can also publish the list in advance, which is pretty cool because then you get to see in advance, the different armies that are coming, and if I get matched up with somebody, I can immediately go to my document and I can see what their army is without illegal list creeping in. So anyway, long story short, I think I've got my list down pat. We're actually going to do a list review show. So I'm going to do a data/list review show probably the week prior to CanCon. So myself, Liam, and Clint will go through some of our favorite lists, our most interesting lists, some of the strongest lists that are coming to CanCon, and make some predictions. So, by the way, just as an FYI, so people don't hobby shame me or anything, I don't normally paint out of the pot like I am right now, but to paint with the wet palette as well, and working with I'm also trying to be conscious of having the models under the camera and then looking at the stream. I'm not normally this animalistic, so apologies in advance for anyone who's sitting here wondering, why isn't he thinning these paints down and what? Well, I am, but please don't hobby shame me. Don't think less of me as a human. One question, the Flesh Eater Courts review comes soon. Yes, I need to do Flesh Eater Courts. It has been one that initially for a long time, I actually, I had Captain America, Bill Sousa lined up, but getting the time zone down pat and ETC was a bit challenging. I will hopefully get that Flesh Eater Courts one coming, because I've got Flesh Eater Courts, Slaves to Darkness, and now we'll have to redo KO and redo Zench. So we know that for a fact. So yes, please, Flesh Eater Courts is burning a hole in my channel. Castigators are good because they are the same points as Judicators. You get the extra model, and they're in 3s. Yeah. I could see uses for them. I have seen some people using them. It just depends on the build. But I don't think they're rubbish. Nick is diving back into KO and finishing off. Awesome. That's very, very cool. Looking forward to seeing what they do to KO. I think it was such a missed opportunity with KO. They started the army. It was a very expensive army to get into at the start. Then they had made some unfortunate changes that certain KO players were very vocal about, with skyhooks and the way you equip your models. And I think that disheartened a lot of players. So if I think about what I would like to see from KO in the new book, I would like to see things like gun haulers and some of the other ships more on the table. I think we only see 1 or 2 of the ships at most, and you're often rewarded by things like your engine rigger balloon boys. So I would like to see less of the quote unquote clown cars and more, again, things like the gun haulers, things like Brock. Again, exploring the whole book as opposed to just half of it. What do you think about always strike first rules? I think it's a bit overdone. I liked it in certain parts, but I think we've gotten into this very bloated, convoluted world of too many things striking first. The quote unquote activation wars, and I don't think there should be anything in the game that makes people have a bad time. So I'll use Slaanesh at the moment because Slaanesh are the bad guys. But if I think about the negative experiences that I've had in Age of Sigmar, a few of them lately have been against Slaanesh, and it's been having 2 or 3 keepers of secrets in my line, and using Locus, and then having the Epitome as well using their version of Locus. So all of a sudden, my army is essentially all striking last. So what does that mean? It means it's uninteractive to me, because I just sit there and I watch as my opponent just rolls dice, and my interaction is just armor save rolls. Now, that's not a lot of fun. So I think it was a wonderful mechanic that's been overdone. There's too many things now that interact with always strikes first. Hopefully we see that get toned down a little bit, because what I don't want to see is, often the complaint in the 40K world is it becomes an arms race. I've referred to this before. So we all chase always strikes first, and then we all look for the rule next that supersedes always strikes first, and then basically we're just quote unquote chasing the meta, which I wouldn't want to see the game turn into. I think there's too much wonderful hobby going on right now that I wouldn't want to go see people just contrasting their armies for the sake of having the strongest, craziest armies on the table as quick as possible. So that's my thoughts on always strikes first. Needs to be toned down a little bit. Any painting is getting absolutely. And please, I'm not hobby shaming anyone at all with contrast. I mentioned earlier, I've been contrasting my Zench demons, but what I don't want to see is I saw some 40K tournaments where literally it was the absolute minimum standard of getting hobby on the table, and these were on the top tables. So I would still like to see the hobby thriving, and I would love to see people painting more and looking for ways to convert, and spending their time in their armies as opposed to just chasing the most brokenest stuff that's just released, I guess is my point. So please, I'm not shaming anyone on you don't have to be a hobby god. Sounds like good content to me. Hey Rocco, hey Warsoren. All right, hold on. I was quoting what Rocco's saying. The Archanaut nerf incoming with the new KO release. You won't get 3-star. Okay, some interesting call outs from Luke. Really, that sounds like a 40K game where the charging army usually fights first. I tell you something that I've really envied 40K on that I would love to see in Age of Sigmar, and that is, and I had this chat with Liam some time ago, because I know Liam, my co-host, absolutely hates, for a while he was very vocal about Grimghast Reapers, who are a very, very strong unit that could return in a Legions of Nagash army for one command point. Now, I don't think the problem is that the Grimghast Reapers come back. I think the problem is that for one command point, it was too cheap to do it. So I remember, I provide some feedback to Games Workshop. I've had, different chats around the community. And my feeling is that this one command point for everything is not a true reflection. And in 40K, they have stratagems, which is their equivalent to command points, that can be worth between 1 and 4 points. So, if I was going to bring back a unit of, let's say, Grimghast Reapers, that should maybe cost me 1 command point for 10. And then if I want to bring back a unit of 30, that should cost me 3 command points. So all of a sudden, bringing back a unit of 10 and the unit of 30 should not be the same cost, the opportunity cost. So now all of a sudden, if I'm spending 3 command points to bring back a unit, that's a real decision. That's a real decision. And I think something like, let's say, for example, always strikes first. Maybe that's 2 or 3 command points to do it. We know it's really tough, and if you still want to do it, that's fine. But know that it's going to cost you more resources. So this game is really, should be resource allocation and making real decisions, because otherwise you get in situations like Slanesh that the easy option is I take 2 or 3 Keepers of Secrets. And I can then just summon up my bodies, because the opportunity cost of getting 3 heroes or 3 Keepers of Secrets or 2 Keepers of Secrets, that's almost half an army. It might even be more than an army, more than half an army. But I can bring in my bodies, so the opportunity cost isn't that much through depravity. I guess is my point. Contrast videos on YouTube are freaking awesome. Yeah, I think now that people have a real good chance to play with contrast, we're seeing some wonderful uses of wet blending. We're seeing a whole range of different ways to use contrast outside of just quick batch painting. So yeah, they're not a silver bullet, but they're a wonderful tool to have in your arsenal. No different to Green Stuff World has some like metallic shape-shifting colored paints. It's just another tool. Use the right tool for the job at hand. Vince Venturella is absolutely a hobby god. I got to do a painting workshop with him at Adepticon, and he's coming to Australia for CanCon, and the day before I'm actually doing a painting workshop with him. So I'll be doing a full day painting workshop that I think I'm going to paint my Maw Crusher with a Goblin hero on top. So yeah. Luke, they don't come with a box of 3 Skyhawks. You get one of each weapon per 10. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. There is very, very possible that they're going to go, and they've been doing this with other boxes and other books that you equip your unit with what comes in the box as opposed to, and this was part of the problem with KO right at the start, is they didn't specify that, and people were arming a whole unit of 10 Arcanauts with 10 Skyhawks, and people were a bit upset that they quickly changed that. Add the MSU rule to returns if you don't want. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I guess my point would be is that you have a scale. If you're going to use command points, you'd have a sliding scale. If I want to bring back 10 Grimghast Reapers, it costs me 1 command point. If I want to bring back 20, and it's almost like this scale that you have in the General's Handbook, and if I want bring back 40, then it's going to cost me 4. So depending on how many command points I have at the time, it'll depend on how many I can bring back. That's how I would like to see things like that. That's why taking Bone Reapers is with their take on resource management, just finding a fix for the +1. Yeah. The Petrifix is it's an interesting one. Being that I've now played against them twice. Their terrain piece is quite good. On a 4+, it could be -1 to hit or negative to cast. They have a lot of tools, so I imagine if I'm building a competitive list, I need to, and this is why I've played 2 Petrifix armies in the last fortnight, and I haven't primarily focused on winning. I've primarily focused on, I want to see what they can do, and I want to see how much it takes of my resources to take out 2 catapults, to take out a unit of 6 stalkers, to take out a harvester. And so when it comes to CanCon, I've got a better understanding of how I allocate my resources on top of attempting to claim the objective. So that'd be my advice as well, is if anyone's going to a tournament and they'd like to get good, certainly getting exposure to other armies and remembering that you learn more from your losses than you do from your victories. So I can't stress that enough, because what you don't want to do is when you come to the tournament, make poor decisions. You want to have the best understanding of what, again, I turn 1 charging Maw Crusher, and having 6 to 12 pigs following along or hitting you at the same time, like really show me what this can do. Which is why I said to Liam, like, I want to play Liam, hit me with your catapult. I'm going to give you first turn as well. So I actually gave Liam first turn last night because I wanted to see what his catapults could do. I'm like, just hit me, delete my units. I want to see what you can do. And then how am I going to respond to that? So, but I mentioned my CanCon list. So what am I working on for CanCon? So my list, I think I finally settled on it. So what am I going to bring? So first off, my hero choices. I'm taking, my general is going to be an anointed. So that is the leader of the Phoenix Guard. I'm taking him, 1, because he makes my Phoenix Guard battle line. 2, he allows me to unbind an endless spell, dispel an endless spell and unbind a spell. So he's got some magical abilities, and I'm allocating him an artifact that allows him to be a spellcaster. So he's going to be able to cast a spell, unbind an enemy spell, and dispel an endless spell all at the same time, without sacrificing each other because of the way the rules are worded. So they're very different things. So, and his artifact is going to be the Hallow Heart, called the Witfire Tome, which is basically a spell book. Now, if you give that to a wizard, he gets to know all 6 of the spell laws spells in the Hallow Heart book. But if he's not a wizard, which the Anointed isn't, he gets to cast a spell, which is pretty cool. So he'll have this spell called Ignite Weapons that's going to make it easier for my handgunners or my Phoenix Guard to wound. So it's a nice little piece to bring down my to wound roll. I've also got 2 battle mages. So the generic battle mages fit really well with my Hurricanum, which is clearly what I'm building right now. The spells that I'm likely going to take with them is either Fireball. So the cool thing about the battle mage is that you pick the spell on the day. So traditionally, you don't have to pick your spells in advance. So it means that I'm going to be able to manipulate and play around with my opponent depending on who I'm playing. So Fierce Protection is a really good spell. So I can cause -1 to hit on things. I've got spells like Fireball that allow me to do some serious damage, either D3 or D6 mortal wounds. What else have I got? I've got some other different options, but things like Fierce Protection as well. It's just a good one, -1 to hit. I noticed that the Bone Reapers started to struggle a little bit when I applied the -1 to hit against certain units. What else? I've got my Hurricanum. So the Hurricanum is a buff piece. It does a whole heap of mortal wounds out of it, but also battle mages get +1 to cast when they're within its radius. And models within its radius will also get +1 to hit. So I can get my Phoenix Guard hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, not too hard. Or I can do my handgunners in a very similar range. So they could do some serious damage. 2 battle mages, Anointed, Hurricanum. Oh, and the Knight Incantor. So the Knight Incantor comes into the army. Wonderful once per game unbind, like an auto unbind. Also allows me to bring the Everblade's Comet. So if I'm thinking about how do I deal with something like around the Bone Reapers, so I'm thinking about the Comet, so the catapults. I've played a few Skaven lists who have a lot of like long range shooting from the likes of Jezzails and the likes of what's it called, the Warp Lightning Cannons. And even like having the Bombardiers that sit behind the lines that are like, buffing them up with Warp Sparks. This is a way I can kind of handle them from long range. So I've got the Everblaze Comet that goes with the Knight Incantor. No surprise. The battle line choices, so I have a unit of 30 Phoenix Guard. And the reason they're there is, 1, they do a little bit of damage, but 2, and more importantly, being Hallow Heart, I had probably 1,000 points worth of magic casters. If I think about what it costs to take the battalion and the hero choices, that's a lot of, and then obviously then the endless spells. That's a lot of points invested. So I need something that can handle the damage that, a Slaanesh, Iron Jaws, a Beast Claw Raiders are going to throw at me. Hell, Daughters of Cain. There's a lot of combat-focused armies. So those Phoenix Guard very much have a 4-up save and then a 4-up after save. So they're very, very, very durable. And I have something called the Life Swarm. So because I'm Cities of Sigma, they're what's called Empowered by the Realm. So most endless spells have this rule called Empowered by the Realm. So instead of bringing back D3 models, I can bring back up to D6. So should an enemy kind of hit me really hard, and I need to respond, I can still bring back some Phoenix Guard and keep that line as strong as possible. So I'm just looking for my Mournfang Brown. Oh. Yeah, that'll do. Can't say Dryad Bucks. We'll just use Morphane Bram. So we'll have the Phoenix Guard. There's 2 units of handgunners in this army. So the 2 units of 10 handgunners have a long rifle, which the long rifle becomes really good because it ignores Lookout Sir. So it allows me to snipe characters that might be buffing up a unit. They have a range of 30 as well. So so should I have, again, I don't know, a Hag Queen or, a little Bombardier or, a Grot Wizard that, it's just annoying me and I just can't touch them because they're behind a whole bunch of bodies. That long rifle with a 30-inch range not only keeps my opponent honest because they're a bit worried about the long-range threat, but also ignores that Lookout Sir rule. So I don't have to worry about the -1 to hit a character if they're next to a unit. But also the reason I've got the handgunners is because they have in 40k, they call it Overwatch. But in Age of Sigmar, it's a very unique rule that if you end a charge move within 3 inches of the handgunners, they get to shoot before combat commences. So should I have a Stormcast army, deep strike and then charge me, immediately? What it allows me to do is my handgunners get a free round of shooting before combat commences. So it means the damage may be less impacted. So last night I played against a Slaanesh version of the Beast of Chaos, which is really, really cool, really cool. And he hit me with a really tough unit of, I think it was Bestigors. It was a very combat-orientated unit. It was a big unit. They were doing 3 attacks each, hitting on 3s, wounding on 3s. Like, it was crazy good. And he ran at my line, and he actually touched both of my handgunner units. So they both got a round of shooting before combat commenced, and basically destroyed like 16. I think I killed 16 of his Bestigor out of 30. So all of a sudden, that unit of 30 was down to over 50% of damage taken. So that mitigated my hit. But it also was a deterrent. People like, oh, I don't want to handle that potential, 20 attacks with rend -1. So a nice little defense piece as well. What else do I have? I have a unit of Shadow Warriors. So took a unit of Shadow Warriors because one thing that my army lacks is movement. It has no movement and doesn't not have movement, but I don't have the movement shenanigans. So if I have to fight in a scenario like, let's say, Knife to the Heart, where there's only 2 objectives and you've got to essentially get to the backfield of your opponent, I just can't do it. It's just too hard because my army is quite slow. So the Shadow Warriors allow me to deep strike them, so they can come on anywhere in the board outside of 9 inches by turn 4. So it means that I can challenge for late game objectives, but also allows me to, if my opponent forgets or is not protecting a part of the battlefield, or if there's a character I need to snipe, I can attempt to use a Shadow Warriors for that role. So they're a nice little addition, and they don't require any buffs. If they're in cover, they get +1 to hit and +1 to wound. So it means that they're hitting on 2s, wounding on 3s. So that's pretty good. Rend 1 for 1 damage. So could be a nice way to just finish off a unit or a character. I've got the Whipfire battalion, which means all of my wizards get +1 to cast, +1 to unbind. And that complements quite nicely with 1, the Hurricanum, that gives me +1 to hit. But so +1 to spell casting to my everyone who isn't the Knight Incantor. Obviously gives me an additional artifact, which my Hurricanum takes the Ignax Scales for the 4-up additional save. Lowers my drops. And then I finally have 3 endless spells. I have the Everblaze Comet, as I mentioned, to touch the battlefield wherever I need it to go. I also have the Life Swarm to bring back handgunners or my Phoenix Guard. And then finally, I have the Umbral Spell Portal. And the Umbral Spell Portal is pretty cool, primarily because there's one particular spell called the Elemental Cyclone that comes out of the Seas of Sigmar, which basically you roll a dice for every model in the enemy unit, and on a 4+, it's a mortal wound. So should somebody give me first turn and I'm threatened by I don't know, a horde of 20 to 30 models, you know, there's mathematically I can delete half of that unit with one spell. Doesn't always work that way, but there was one game, for example, where I played a Khorne player, and they had 30 bloodletters coming for me, and I rolled my 30 dice, and I killed 21 bloodletters in one with that one spell. So sometimes it works really well, sometimes it doesn't work as well. So, but it's a nice little way to touch a unit who might be holding an objective, or to deplete an opponent before they start. I think that's it. I think that's my CanCon 2,000 point list. I originally did have a Free Guild General in there, but I traded that in for an additional wizard, because the Free Guild General, while he has a really cool command ability, I just didn't find I had enough command points to use it. And all Hallowheart wizards cast 2 spells. So I thought it was better to lean into my strengths as opposed to diversifying too much. So yeah, that's my Cities of Sigmar list. I did try around with some other things. I tried the Soulscream Bridge, which wasn't really my style. I think if I was taking something like Iron Drakes, it would definitely be better for me. But I found that using the Crossbowman, which I previously had, but I dropped for Handgunners, it just didn't really work with the way I like to play. But yeah, that is what I'll be running in CanCon in about a month's time, which is pretty scary. If you follow me on Twitter, you might have seen that I'm also working on a display board. So that display board is going to be my version of either Hallowheart or a sister city, which I'm very excited about. I've recreated the Stormcast Eternal statues that are out front of Warhammer World. Actually, I'll bring out one. Yeah. So there's one of the Golden Boys. So if you've been to Warhammer World, or if you've seen pictures of Warhammer World, you'd recognize this actual plinth with the Stormcast hero. So there'll be about 6 of those sitting out front of my city as the road leads into Hallowheart. So I'm furiously painting an army, building up my terrain, and building a display board. So it's keeping me busy. And now also just practicing as well. So recently had a couple of games against OBR, as I previously mentioned. Played against the Slaanesh Beast of Chaos. Played probably about 10 to 12 games so far. Next Sunday, I've got a little 1-day 3-game tournament. Got a couple of other little 1-game events kind of coming up that trying to get as much practice in as well for CanCon. And then think about what I want to do next. Do I want to keep with cities? I think I will, but damn, Games Workshop keeps bringing out such cool stuff. Doesn't make my life any easier. So yeah, that's kind of it. I probably wrap up this stream in about 5 minutes time. It's almost lunch, and I need to go to a game store before they close, so I can buy some airbrush paints before we move into the shutdown around New Year's. So is there anything that you guys want to ask me? I appreciate every single one of you who have joined on this Hobby Hangout stream. I didn't know if I was going to get one person or a million people or somewhere in between, but I appreciate you guys have hung out with me, and we've painted, and definitely do this more often. I think the goal next year, if I think about what the channel is going to be, maybe I wrap. If there's no additional questions, I might share with you where I'm thinking about the channel for 2020. So, recently celebrated it was not long. It was about 6 weeks ago that I celebrated hitting the 2,500 subscriber mark, which was crazy. Never thought about that. We're now over 3,000 subscribers, which is crazy. I'm absolutely blown away with the amount of support. The channel started really around this time 2 years ago. So when we've just finished 2 years of AOS Coach as a channel. So what do I want to do? So a couple of the plans, and again, I had a feedback form that went out, and many of you guys have provided feedback. So thank you for your feedback and your honesty. The faction focuses are starting to wrap up. So obviously, as new battle tomes come out, we'll do reviews, and we'll keep making sure that we finish up Flesh Eater Courts, and we review the new books moving forward. The emerging meta show that happened last month seemed very popular, and I'd like to build that out even more, and do that as a monthly data show. So you guys have the Honest Wargamer, and you have my view. So you've got two complete different data sets, but overall, I think it gives a nice, robust picture of Age of Sigmar and where we're at. So you can improve your gaming and start thinking about the more competitive landscape of Age of Sigmar. This hobby hangout was a trial, and so far I'm really excited. I think we'll definitely do more of these, but I'd like to go back to my roots as well. So we've been doing the fortnightly Down Under Sigma show with Liam, and I'd like to continue that. And we've obviously now converted that into a podcast. Many of you had said that you just can't listen to the show all the time, and podcasts are great for the gym or when you're driving. So we'll keep that up and keep trying to highlight as many awesome local gamers as possible. But I'd also like to tap into a bit more of the international community. I really want to highlight Australia. That's obviously my hometown, and I think we don't have enough voices locally to promote, the good stuff that happens here. But at the same time, there's so many of you legends that I'd like to keep focusing on the international scene. What else? I'd like to go back to my roots, as I mentioned, and start doing more introduction content. So I've been building out a getting started guide, a very robust how to start playing Age of Sigmar, and really expanding upon some of the great work that Games Workshop has done to have a very comprehensive step 1 to 70 video series of how to get into this game. So, and within that, obviously there'll be topics like, list building. There'll be topics like, preparing for a tournament. There'll be things like, gaming styles. So I want to start filming that in the new year. So that'll be my big project that kind of replaces the faction focus as that wraps up. And that's kind of it so far. I know some people have mentioned about battle reports. I don't know if that's somewhere I want to be. There's so many cool bat rep channels. I don't know if I have there's only one idea that I have that would make my view unique. So I don't want to get into something and not add value. So something to keep in mind. Thank you very much. That's a awesome thank you. That's a very, very flattering compliment. Thank you. Just finished your demon prints. Got some time off. Some photos. Yeah, absolutely. That's cool. Please keep sharing photos. If you haven't followed Warsoren, awesome painter, keep it up. All right, this could be the final question, unless something floods into the chat box. The next 20 seconds. This might be the last. Any thoughts on bringing Shadespire or Warcry warbands in Age of Sigmar lists? Yeah. So far, I've really struggled with bringing in the Underworld's warbands. I've just found a lot of them have been restrictive. The only one that I've found are really, and again, obviously, I'm talking from a competitive point of view. If you are a hobbyist, do what you want to do, have the fun that you want to have. In a competitive sense, I think the only Underworld's warband that seems to translate really well so far is the the Briar Queen from the Nighthaunt range. So that Underworld's Warband seems to translate really well into Nighthaunt. Otherwise, I mean, I tried the Gloomspite Gits one. It just really struggled. It just, a lot of points, and it's almost the same price as the Gobblepalooza, which chalk and cheese. I'd rather take the Gobblepalooza. Most of them just don't translate very well, usually because they're high points cost and they don't synergize very well with the rest of the army. Now, I could be proven wrong. I just haven't seen a lot of good use cases for it. As for the Warcry warbands, I know some people have talked about things like the Iron Golems potentially in the Slaves to Darkness. I will, but then the challenge is, do you take them or do you take more Marauders? And I think, again, the obvious choice is everyone goes with Marauders. But they're a wonderful little siloed warband. They can go run around, do stuff. So, yes. To Rocco's point, absolutely. That's another reason why I don't do bat reps. So Liam, my co-host on Down Under Sigma, does really good bat reps. And I think I don't think it's fair for me to go into the bat rep world, and he does wonderful job. So I'd like to see him do more of these videos, and maybe there's some synergy there that we can work together. I don't want to eat his lunch. Sounds great for new content, bat reps. Definitely check out Liam. Liam's busted in my chops to get on his channel. So we'll have an OBR versus Halo Heart game, hopefully before CanCon. The Underworld warbands are awesome. I absolutely love the Gits ones. I absolutely love the Fire Slayer, the KO. They're all wonderful painting, and they're also a nice little tester into trying before you buy. And who knows, it might lead into your next new army. And you'll be paying Fire Slayers next. Definitely a break from Chaos. They're very different builds. Cool. So what have we done? I think to wrap this up, what have I done? Not only have I talked to you guys have been absolutely legends. Lots of cool stuff that's come out of this. My progress so far is I've painted this silver. Let's see if this helps. Oh, wow. It's a big difference. So that's the center of the Hurricanum's energy. So been working on this while we've been chatting. Working a little bit on the Hurricanum's chassis or the base. Still going to do a whole bunch of stuff in the middle. These demigryphs are going to be pulling the Hurricanum. So instead of a traditional horse, they'll be pulled by the demigryph. If you guys haven't noticed, my army scheme is red and blue. This is the center, but I think what I'm going to do is these little things are very fiddly and they break really easily in transport. So I'm thinking about, I'm going to cut these off here. And what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to drill some holes here into the spike. So remove some of the spikes and then just place them in here instead. So I think that might look better and be more robust for that. What else? I've been playing around a little bit with the battle mage that sits on top. Haven't even touched that yet. So that's the base of the. So I'll start putting this together. Also used a few of these. Used to be these old basing kits that Games Workshop used to produce, and you've got like a little buried, horse wagon, or the wagon wheel. Sorry, some skeleton bones, little horse skull. So I got to finish that off, plus a whole bunch of other things. Guys, this has been an absolute pleasure. I think I'm going to end the stream now. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day if you're only getting started, or have a lovely night if you are finishing your day. Let's do this more often. Definitely, I'll make this a scheduled monthly thing, and maybe do some more ad hoc stuff. But if you guys really enjoy this, let me know, comment, like it, and who knows, maybe it becomes more of a fortnightly thing, or we'll try to work something out. Until next time, guys, have a lovely Christmas, have a wonderful New Year's, and we'll chat all soon.